Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Tracy and this is Pasquale.
Hey!
Today we're going to be talking about the astrological elements and their aspect to how they manifest themselves in our relationships and our compatibility and the types of people that we could be drawn to in different circumstances.
Yes.
And what I guess we've realized too, well, I've realized, is that in friendships, we may be drawn to people who we have similar elements.
Yes.
Right. And then, but in relationships, in a partnership, we are usually drawn. It's the opposites that attract, right? So we're drawn to the people who have maybe what we would be low on, which element we have that are low or missing, right?
Yeah, and I think it's exactly like you said, right? We're always like, if you think about it in like a friendship type of way, we're always going to be drawn to the friends who are similar to us, right? The same type of energy, like do the same things,
mm-hmm.
right? But if you notice, there's always one person in your friend group who's kind of like not really the exact same energy, but a little bit different. They're the creating the stability in the rest of the friends, right? They're like your designated driver, or they're the one who kind of like supports us, right?
Mm-hmm.
You always have that, right? But it's that balance in the friendships.
Yeah.
Whereas I think in relationship, what happens is that oftentimes we're drawn to or seeking that element that we're missing to create that stability, right? So last time we talked about how stability, you can bring stability into your home, right? I have no earth, so if I bring plants into my house, I create a little bit of stability within myself, right? You can do that with people, right? So you can create and have their elements connect with our missing elements to create stability between us.
Right.
And oftentimes those are the relationships that kind of flourish a little bit more because they're supporting each other.
Right. And that could be both good and bad, as we know, right?
Totally.
Dating or being married to your opposite, we can use it to our advantage and allow it to balance us out, right?
Yes.
We can, that's the best part about it, and that can, if we allow that to happen within the relationship, that can be a wonderful foundation and, a very long-lasting, stable, loving relationship. But the flip side of that is a lot of times if we're not making that conscious effort for that balance, that relationship can become very toxic because now we're just at each other and picking at each other. The communication is off. We don't have that common understanding,
yes.
right? Because we think differently, we feel differently, we act differently.
We're driven by different things.
Correct, right? Yeah. So but I want to like just make sure that it's important to know that it is a conscious effort. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. We're going to go into detail and give the examples of us with our spouses, and we'll use that as an example to go into about like how we can make that work, make those opposites work, because we're both married to our opposites.
Very much so. Very much so. And just the caveat to this really is that we're not saying that the energy is attracting to the opposite and it's going to be like, like Cinderella when she's in her little carriage. We're not talking about that. Like that's not real, right? Life is still the ups and downs. There's still the challenges in the other elements, right? Yeah. Just because you balance in one element, you still have the other elements that kind of play with you, right? And that's the important thing to realize is that living, right? We're living. Living means learning, mm-hmm. right? Experiencing, and that's always going to be, there's some differences in everything.
Yeah.
I just think it's important because
we're
not
nothing
saying
is,
like, it's going to be
easy.
perfect.
No, not at all. No.
Work.
Conscious effort every single day.
Yeah, I agree. So let's kind of just talk through just basic generalities, right? Okay. So someone who has a missing or weak element of fire, mm-hmm. they're typically going to be drawn to people who are more outspoken, right? They're weak in fire, so they're not really driven, right? They don't want to be seen, right? They're kind of more of the introvert. Mm-hmm. So they're always going to be drawn to someone who brings them out, right? Someone who helps them kind of get out of that kind of shell that they're in, right?
And also for the fire person, the one that does want to be seen, the more of the extrovert, it's kind of like you're not competing for that spotlight.
For that attention.
And so that's where it can really, they can
create harmony.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of harmony. So like you'll see that, right? Someone with air, right? Someone who has a lot of air, right? They're a social butterfly, right? They're someone who's always out and about, breathing life. They're typically going to be drawn to someone who's more of an introvert. Again, right? Someone who's less about connecting with people and more about being part of it, right? Experience.
Which would be the earth. So you're going to be drawn to somebody that is high in earth.
Sometimes.
Okay.
It balances, like if you're looking at the elements, it's element to element, right? So if I'm weak in air, I'm going to want high air, right? If I'm weak in earth, I'm going to want high earth. Within the same.
Okay.
Because that helps you kind of begin the drawing. And then once you get the full picture, you kind of look at the entire picture of it.
Okay.
And then you can see where it connects, right? But like the same with someone with a strong earth, right? Someone who's like, I am so stable, I have labels on everything. Like, they're going to want someone who isn't. Yeah. They're not going to like it, right? Because that creates that sense of instability for them. But it's going to be the passion, right? The drive, the fun, the desire, right? And then it's the same with water, right? Someone who has no water is going to want someone who has more. So someone who's no water is typically someone who isn't feeling all the time, right? They're typically a little more quiet, a little less emotional. They're more pensive or thinking, right?
Right.
And so they're going to want someone who is more emotional to create that balance. And that can create
that emotional stability and balance the higher water, more emotional person like me.
Yes, exactly. Because they'll let you cry, right? Because they're not going to feel it. So that, right? Like, and it's not. I don't mean that in a mean way, but it's just the way it works.
Take it in.
They're good with it. They don't absorb it, right? Whereas two people who have high water, they're just going to always cry,
right?
Or always be mad, or always laugh, because they won't be able to get out of that cycle because they keep sharing that, right?
Right. That makes sense.
But you can also balance it by crossing elements, right? So someone high in fire, who's always passion, drive, desire, wants to be like seen, may be drawn to someone who's more of an earth person, who is more like, I just want order, right? So I'll create the order, you go create the fun, right? If you think about a dinner party, right? The earth person's going to be like, all right, I have all this earth and I'm going to create this great party, right? I'm going to have the best table and the best appetizers and everyone's going to love it. And then their fire person's like, and I'll take care of the entertainment and drinks, right? And like they balance it, right?
And that has to be going back to making a conscious effort to allow those strengths to play out in your relationship. Work towards those strengths.
Yes.
And for somebody like that, it would be, like I create, right? So I'm more creative and I will think up things and I will I'll do everything ahead of time that I can. But then my husband, Dave, he's the one on that day that has to put it all together. So it's like I dream it and he creates it.
Yeah. And that's a great way to create balance when you're in harmony, right?
Yeah.
Now, if let's just be super real, right? Someone who has a lot of earth and they have like a fire person, right, as their partner, there's balance in that, right? But also remember, the earth is burned by fire, right? So too much fire will annoy the earth person. So it's better to bring your focus to how do we create harmony.
Right.
Right? Like that's kind of the key is like
and allow
it's
each
the
other.
learning. Exactly.
And we can't one of the most difficult things in relationships is we assume people, especially like our partner, it's like, you should know me. You should know what I want. You should know what I'm thinking. You should know what to say. And I'm like, I don't care how close you are and how much you love somebody and they love you. We cannot read minds. Well,
I am not a telepath. I will tell everyone that all the time. I do not read minds.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, we have to have that communication and we have to understand that we don't think alike.
Yes.
It doesn't, our thought process is so very different.
Yes. And that's what makes the relationship like our relationship,
Mhm.
right? It's the differences.
Right.
The differences are important.
Yeah.
And you need to claim those differences, right? Just like we allow the balance to happen, right?
Mhm.
We also have to let the balance between the other elements also happen. So, if you have a fire person and you're more of a stable person, let them be the fire and expect it and
Yeah.
know that, right? They're going to be on stage. That doesn't mean that they don't love or care about you or they don't know how to set a table. It's just that their focus and their strength is there. Yours is here.
Right.
Work together to create that harmony.
Right. And it's interesting that a lot of times what we're initially attracted to in a person is usually what ends up, like, we end up like just getting on our nerves, or like that's like the destructive part of it. And it's so interesting because then when I talk to couples and I'm like, what made you guys, fall in love in the first place? What was it? And interestingly enough, they're pointing out the very characteristics or qualities that brought them to couples counseling therapy anyway, and that they're complaining about now.
Totally.
And I'm like, okay, you gotta like bring it back and remember, like this, you've lost the balance.
Yes.
And you've lost appreciating that they're different.
You're allowing the other elements to take over.
Yeah.
And so again, just like when we talked about 2 sessions 2 weeks ago, where the missing element, our bodies naturally want to try to solve it, right? It's going to do the same in a relationship. It's going to try to balance the energies between us to create that harmony, right? But we have to help and support it. We've got to get out of the way and allow it to happen, right? Because it's like you said, the thing that you're most complaining about is probably the thing that drew you to them, right? You're just not letting the balance continue.
Right. Even things like, who's managing the finances or who's better at, it's like
Earth people.
Work to the strength, right? Work to, like, who is the planner? Let them do the planning. Who is the more the extrovert, the fun, like, let them plan that type of stuff, let them plan the activities. Or you do it together and you make that.
You base it off of each other.
Right, exactly. And then you end up having the perfect trip for the two of you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I know we're going to talk about our individual partners, but like I actually have that in us, is that I am not like, and I'm just going to go right into it, right? I have 0 earth.
Yeah.
I have 0
Me
earth.
too.
Nothing, right? I do not know how to cook. I do not know how to plan. Can barely count the chairs, okay? Like when people come. Let's just be honest, okay? But my partner is super earth, right? And we've been together 20 years. And in the 20 years, the one thing that I know is that we will have the greatest holiday parties, right? 30, 40 people will come over, right? And he will be like, and I'm going to make this on the menu and this, and this, right? And you know what? I let him. And what do I do in that sense? I come as the backup and I go, okay, I'm the sous chef. I will chop things up. I will throw things away. I will clean, right? Because those are things that don't require planning. I do it on the minute, right? He's doing this. Oh, there's that. And I can go do that, right? We play on each other's strengths in that way where we can just let it happen.
Right. I love that. And then you realize that between the two of you, you have everything you
in that
need.
Moment. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It could, because you have the fun and the entertainment, but it's also been planned and organized. And same thing, I mean, before I even knew about the elements, I would describe my relationship with my husband, and I would say, I'm like the kite, and he is the one on the ground, like just stabilizing me, and he allows me to fly. He allows me to create, knowing that I have that stability, and that helps me feel safe in that space. Yes. Knowing that he is grounding me, and it can create a solid foundation.
Yeah.
Just as long, but again, that's been a very conscious effort between the two of us to allow that to flourish and for it to allow it to complement each other, as opposed to like making, like causing arguments.
Yeah.
Or like, that the differences.
Well, like in that scenario, right? Like it's a great example because like you're the kite, right? Like you're just floating, like, you know what I mean? And your husband's holding you down and being that support, right?
Right.
Well, you each have to claim what you're doing, right? And you have to respect it, right? So your husband's holding it knowing I'm the stability here, right?
Right.
So I have to allow her to float,
Right.
because I know that she's stable because of
Yeah.
me, right?
And I'm the big picture. I'm the very general, especially with my ADHD, right? So
Yeah.
it's like I'm the big picture person. I'm the creative, so I will dream things up and come up with all these, crazy ideas and, this kind of stuff. And then he actually helps me break it down and implement it,
Yeah.
because I'm just like, I'll come up with like this big picture type thing. And he's very detailed oriented.
Yeah.
And it used to, when we're not on the same page and we're allowing that to cause friction, cause arguments, it's like he'll start asking me all of these questions. And to me, if I'm not in that place and allowing it, and I'm in la-la, I'm in my dreamland planning, creating, and then it just seems like a big buzzkill to me. And I'm like, okay, because he's asking and challenging me on all these questions about how to do this or what won't work. And I'm like, can you say something positive? Can you help me figure it out? And he's like, well, I am. But his way of figuring it out is let's troubleshoot.
The logic.
Right. And it's the logic.
The checklist.
So I have to, I consciously, I had to get to the point where I'm consciously, like, I had to remind myself, no, he's not trying to like be that buzzkill of your dream, how you were like, and that's my heart, right? My heart is like, let's just do this, but he gets it done. And that's his way of getting it done. So as long as I allow that to happen, and I can tell you, like, there are many times that he's come in and like just saved the whole plan,
Totally.
saved the project because of something that he challenged, and I realized, oh wow, that would not have worked. Had I have moved forward with what I was planning, the whole thing would have gone to
Totally.
hell in a handbasket.
It's totally the truth though, right?
Yeah.
But it's like you have to take that conscious moment to go, I know that he is a checklist person, right?
Right.
And I have to allow him to do the checklist
Mhm.
for me to create the stability. So I have to not take it personal.
Right,
Right?
exactly.
And that's where
not
your
taking
water
it
comes
personally.
in, right? Because your
Right.
water is going to make you take it personal.
Right.
And so you have to kind of rein the water back
Mhm.
and let the air kind of push it away so
Yeah.
that you can create that stability, right? Because I will say her husband has saved us a lot of times in some
Oh,
of the
yeah.
events we've done.
Yeah.
Like he's brought tents and like just to keep the sun away, which I never would have thought of. And
I'm like, we're fine.
yeah, it's no sun, SPF, we're great. It's just warm. It's Arizona. And 120 degrees later, when people are melting, we're like, yay, you brought a tent. Every time. He saves us every time. But like that's the balance, right?
Yeah.
Like he creates that balance for us. It's the same in my relationship, right? Like I always joke, like, so I've been this way since I was a kid, right? Since 5 years old, I was intuitive. Things were happening, right? And through that time, I just kind of dealt with it, right? And when I met my partner, he was very much like I don't believe in that stuff. What? Spiritual? Are you kidding? And I'm like, no, I'm the biggest spiritual person ever, And he's like, okay, and it took a minute for our elements to go, oh, this works, right?
Yeah.
But he actually helped me create that stability, right? It was because of his stability that I actually went out and did this full time, right? It was his stability
Right.
that allowed me to even do it part-time in Chicago.
Yeah.
It was because he was like, you could do this. I'm checking all those boxes. This looks good. You should do it,
So we're able to take that. It ends up, if we allow each other to complement it, we're able to take like a calculated risk. Because if you and I just go out and do so, we're just taking a risk.
We're just doing it.
But then, right? I mean, I think it's both. We have a thought in our mind and we just go out and do it. And that's pretty much the end of it.
Yeah.
But like, at least with our partners, we are able, they are able to kind of like troubleshoot that and talk about like, okay, what will work, what may not work, how do we do this, how to move forward.
It's a great sounding board.
But then on the opposite ends, they could talk about and plan stuff forever and not actually do anything. So they need us to actually
Push them.
kind of like push forward and do it.
It works both ways, because
Yeah.
I will tell you, he has come to me and it was like, okay, everything's great, but I'm not really sure what to do about this. And I'm like, whoa! And then I'm like, let me tell you. And then, And, you know, I share all the different ideas or possibilities that he can take.
Right.
Right. And then he's like, writing it down. I got it. And then it creates a stability, right? Like, it's what, if you work together and allow the elements to fully be that balance, it actually creates a lot of harmony. And it creates this propulsion where you go together, right?
But again, we have to consciously
Totally.
remind ourselves about that in the moment, you know, to say, okay, he doesn't think like I do. He doesn't function. He doesn't have a thought process as I do. And that's not a bad thing. There's no right or wrong here, right? And you remember, you have to say, okay, he is my grounding. So I need to, you know, stop taking things personally. I have to like relax, you know, kind of stabilize my emotions here and just listen.
Yes, exactly.
You know? But it's that conscious effort. That is the key.
Well,
It's
it
not
truly
going to
is.
happen naturally. Actually, I think what happens naturally is the clash.
Yes.
If we're just, you know, being with no conscious effort there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, like, very truthfully, like, we have clashes, right? My partner and I have clashes. It normally
me.
happens. Not us.
Not me.
We don't have clashes. Because we're just floating. We're just like balloons floating in the sky. Look how pretty it is. Oh, there's a breeze. We're loving it, you know? But, like, me and my partner will have clashes, right? And it'll take me a minute and, like, for me to back up and go, wait a second. I get why they were clashing. That
Right.
stable person is telling this person who's floating to come down a little bit, right? Or maybe it's not the right time,
Yeah.
right? They give you a different perspective. And like for me, I'll tell you, like, because I am very much an airy person, air-headed person, like that in that balloon that people have in front of their stores. Like, sometimes it's hard for me. It's true, right?
I'm not going to get that out of my head now.
But
Oh my
like,
God.
because my mind
awesome.
is always working that way, like when he comes to me and is like, well, this is kind of the truth, right? For a second, I'm going to be like, no, it's not, you know? But then I'll take a second and I'll be like, you know what? He's right.
Yeah.
Like, I need to slow down, or I need to kind of bring myself back.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay to be that way, right? But that's part of, again, it's living, right? It's the ups and downs and learning how to work with each other's element
Right. And
to create that.
respect
Yes.
those differences.
Yes.
That's huge too.
Yes.
Instead of judging them and picking them apart, or, you know, for us not being the same.
100%. And I think that's the key, right? It's like for me, once I knew what the elements were, it was really easy for me to go back into my mind when something comes up to say, oh, that's right.
It just makes so much sense, and
Yeah.
it puts it into another perspective. So it's not that they just don't want to listen, or they don't understand, or, you know, we don't think alike, we're not getting along, like this kind of stuff. No, it's more, it's like actually, like that is their makeup.
Yes.
Right.
And you have to work with it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I'll tell you, like my partners, like a lot of our friends that he kind of really connects with are very earth people, right? And we went on vacation once with a group of friends, and here's me going, yeah, we're just gonna wake up and figure it out. You know, beach, pool, whatever, right? And our one friend was like, well, actually, I created a checklist, and these are the restaurants we're going to go to, and this is what I'd like to see. And I just kind of looked. And my partner's like, you know that you're freaking him out because he doesn't think that way, right? And she's like, okay. But she sent it anyway, so I put it on my phone, and I kept it. And I was like, I'm going to try really hard to be a checklist person. Did not do well.
Oh my God.
And if you're watching this, you know, I still loved it, and we had a great time. But like, it was really hard for me to connect with that checklist because I was like, but I just want to go to McDonald's.
Right.
I don't want the other
It's like,
restaurant.
I don't know what I'm gonna want to eat that day.
I can't
I
think
don't
that
know
far
what I'm
ahead.
gonna-
I wake up and think about dinner. I don't think about dinner a week before. Like,
Right.
it's just not the way my brain works, right?
Yeah.
But my
Well,
partner is
and
like
me-
very structured.
Yeah, I mean, me with my, you know, being water and being like just emotionally sensitive and kind of having like more extremes at times. And, you know, I have my productive days where I go all out for however long and I just like drain myself, and then I could sleep for 3 days straight after that. And so, and then my husband, he's very stable and pretty much in the same space each day. So that kind of stables me out too.
Totally.
And then he can, when he sees me getting to, if I'm like spinning, you know, and he's the one to bring me back down and go, okay, like you got to even this out, you know, like you don't have to do everything right now. You don't have to do everything today. And me, I'm like, what do you mean? Yes, it does. It has to, I can't stop. I need to do it.
Yeah. Which I will tell you drives me crazy. Like when they're so stable all the time, I'm always like, you know that Mercury's in retrograde, right? And they're always like, but I'm stable. Everything is great. And I'm like, not for me, it's not.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm always laughing because I'm like, I wish I could be that way. So I bring more plants into the house and I start walking more and like, you know, but we create the balance.
Right.
We have to consciously be aware of what is missing and bring that into us. I think
Right.
that's kind of the key of the elements.
Yeah.
And as long as you consciously really decide and claim that that's what you want, that's how you'll get there.
Yeah. And again, I think it makes so much sense when looking at our relationships in that way. Like it's not like there's something wrong with that person. It's not even that something is wrong with the relationship. It's just about learning how to balance each other out.
It's creating this energy, right? And creating that to happen. So look at your charts, look at your relationships, comment below, tell us what you think, and we will see you next time.
All right. Bye.